I'm so excited to welcome Adjany Costa to the speaker series. She is a woman who blazes trails. Adjany is a wildlife ethno-conservationist focusing on community-based natural resource management in the Angola Highlands of Africa. She is also an ichthyologist, which is a fish scientist, and she has gone on many expeditions in the Okavango Delta, which is an incredible wildlife habitat that's so special it's visible from space, and it's a vital source of water for people everywhere. In 2017, she was named a National Geographic Emerging Explorer, and in 2019, she was named a Young Champion of the Earth for Africa by the United Nations Environment Programme. She was also presented with the Golden Medal of Civil Merit in her home country, Angola. She's currently pursuing her PhD focused on development of using community-based natural resource management as the model in the Angola Highlands. You also may have seen her in the National Geographic documentary Into the Okavango. I know I have. It's an amazing film, and we're so excited to add Adjany to the festival. Hello, welcome.
Hello, Brianna. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's so great to have you here. Where are you calling in from?
Angola. With all of the COVID and everything, we are always in the same place now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're so glad that we could bring you into the festival today. And I know I'm really excited to learn about your research and your life getting into this really special world of conservation.
Thank you, Brianna. So I'm having a few technical issues today, so I might not be able to give you an actual visual presentation, so I'm going a cappella today.
Sure, of course.
But I'm giving you several references of Instagram handles and websites that everyone can go to and watch the beautiful images of everything that I'm talking about an hour later on. So
yeah, if you want, I can share my screen if you want to send me any links, and I can pull that up too.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can do that. And also today, I decided to go a little bit off my comfort zone in presentations and be a little bit obnoxious today and start off with an introduction of the path that got me here. I think this is also very important to me, especially to me, because of a series of events that have changed the course of my life and my handle in conservation, which you will understand throughout the presentation. And I think I'm using this also to remind myself of the origin and the path and how we get to where we are. Conservation is sometimes a very gray world where you have to grip on to all the hope that you can get to reach your goals. And I think I'm using this presentation to be very obnoxious. There will be a lot of I's and me's in this presentation, so I really do apologize beforehand on that. But I started off on conservation way before I actually started on conservation. My childhood is all settled in with the Civil War, and the first memory of my life is of the Civil War in the country. But I've always had the possibility of being able to go outside and explore. Going outside and explore meaning going to my backyard and exploring the ants and the spiders that were on my backyard, which a lot of people did not have the privilege to do. If many don't know, and if you haven't seen the movie yet, so Angola was struck by an over 27-year-old civil war, which kind of forced people to stay where they are, period. Fortunately enough, my father helped us explore the environment, and he would make sure to take us to the beach every single weekend, no days off, to be able to go outside and get out of the reality that we were living in. And that got me a very special relationship with water, especially with the marine world, but also the curiosity of being able to explore outside the city that I was in, which is Luanda, and be able to explore the wide country that we had, but none of us was able to know more than, you know, the falling guns around the Civil War. It only started, the ability to travel around the country only started when I was in second year of university, where what I say, magic happened. I started volunteering at a conservation project for turtle protection, marine turtle protection. And it just got me to places that I've never been before. Mind you, it's 20 kilometers away from my house. That is the furthest that I had at that point be able to. Our roads were completely mined, so we couldn't go any further than that. But that to me was magic, to be able to be close to wildlife. Marine turtle was the closest to wildlife that I could get to, and be able to dream beyond the ants and the spiders in my backyard. From that point on, I just started working in everything that could get me to these places. When I was 20, I started working at an environmental consultancy company, and they took me pretty much everywhere. I would be 1 week offshore, watching mammals or having my water probe being stolen by a tiger shark, or exploring the depths of the ocean with ROVs to collect soil samples, or just being able to watch the salps and the jellyfish under the moonlight, the full moonlight, which was amazing. The other week I would be in the middle of nowhere. I call it the middle of everywhere, in the forests that have never been gone to after the Civil War, to be able to explore the fishes. And that's when I started with the ichthyology path that led me to the project afterwards. I decided to go on my master's when I was 22 years old, and that was the first time that I actually was able to live outside of Angola and experience so many different cultures, and most importantly, regain the hope for research. So research was not a big thing as growing up. It was not a big thing while at the university. And so it gave me the prospect of where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do with research on the field, just going at it, finding species, which happened with the National Geographic Okavango Wilderness Project. In 2015, I was called by a university teacher, and I will never forget her call. She called me and she was like, Adjany, so there's this team of explorers from National Geographic, and they're building up a project where technically they don't really know where they're going. Technically, they don't really know what they're doing because no one has ever been there after the Civil War, but they really want an Angolan scientist to go along with them. And I thought, since it's not paid, since it's an unknown place, that you would be crazy enough to join them. And my answer was, okay. That was it. That's when the journey started. A couple of months later, I joined the team where I know no one, and I realized at that point that I might have been making a very serious mistake, because they were all guys and I knew absolutely no one. They all knew each other. I knew absolutely no one. It was the first time that I got into that province, which was the epicenter of the Civil War. I had no idea what was going to happen. And fair enough, I think no one had any idea of what was going to happen in the next 4 months. So we went down on canoes from the source areas of Angola in the Mochico province, which is surrounded by mines, all the way to the Okavango Delta. It took us 4 months, 2,500 kilometers of incredible memories, incredible stories, and incredible research. As part of the fish team, we were able to find 6 new species to science and find links of geographical distribution of different species that we never thought it would be possible. It brought up a lot of different research questions, and up to today, these research questions are growing and increasing and are able to build up the research history of the country. Not just in the theology, but we had scientists coming from all over the world in every single speciality that you can think on biodiversity, and build up the history and the research in the country. That experience changed the whole course of my path in conservation. It opened up something that I never realized was so important in this conservation world, because up to then it was just very informal, very wishful, very, I want to do this in life. But the one thing that I realized was the most important one in conservation, which is, and it sounds very fairy tale-y, which is hope. Hope is the one thing that can lead us to do anything that we want to. And in that expedition, it was very clear. We were able to go from an unknown place that was called, and it was literally called the land of hunger in Angola, to one of the most attention-getting research prone area in the country, the source area, which is probably the most important area of the Kavango-Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area. For those who are not aware of it, the Kavango-Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area is a transboundary area that spreads throughout 5 different countries: Angola, Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And it is centered by the two of the largest transboundary basins in the world, in Africa, which is the Okavango Basin and the Zambezi Basin. So for the Okavango, you might have heard of the Okavango Delta. It's a world-known tourism destination. It is an incredible wild place, one of the last ones on Earth. And the Zambezi one, the area that you might know of, might be the Victoria Falls in Zambia, in Livingstone in Zambia, where it is an incredible place, also again filled with wildlife and very well known. So the Kavango-Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area holds over 2.5 million people living in rural areas, but also, and most incredible of all, you will have over 200,000 elephants living in this area. You'll have 25% of all wild dogs in Africa living there. You will have the largest populations of cheetahs. You will have the largest clans of lions all living in this area. So it is an incredible, fantastic place. And you will have 82% of the water feeding this place coming from the small source area in Angola. And that was probably the biggest discovery we found on that expedition. That source area is probably the lungs and the heart and the skeleton of all of KAZA, and thus helps not just the ecology, but also the socio-economy of all these 5 countries and all the people that live in there. So we're not just talking about wildlife, we're not just talking about beautiful landscapes, we are talking about the life of people as well. So a lot of research started happening in this throughout this period of time. And that's when my career started shifting a little bit, or not shifting, but adding a little bit from the research and from the field work also to governance and applied conservation. I became the director of the project in Angola, and from then on, it was all about creating policies and and allowing the team to further research and allowing the team to be able to get more and more information that will help us feed these conservation policies and help us improve the plans that already existed, and also create new ones that have never been developed before. So Angola had never had an actual conservation planning, and so we were very eager to be able to get the experience that the other countries have and the experience that the local communities have into developing this new conservation plan to save this incredible place and its incredible wilderness, and thus protect the rest of the system as well. And that's when I decided to leave the project a little bit, which you might know from all the National Geographic content, which is the National Geographic Okavango Wilderness Project. If you go to their Instagram, which is Into the Okavango, you will see all of the incredible images from the expedition and from the research afterwards and everything that is being done. And I move forward to focus a lot more on communities and their role and their prospects into conservation. So that is when I became an ethno-conservationist. So working with communities for the sake of conservation and using conservation for the sake of improving communities' lives. My PhD thesis is focused on that. Working with traditional knowledge to improve any existing conservation management plans and elaborate new ones from Angola. I took a step further on that and was able to create my own foundation, which is called the McCoy Foundation, to be able to just specifically focus on that, which is something that was always missing. We've always focused a lot on research, and we've always focused a lot on field work, and we were constantly focused on policies, but we were not giving enough attention to the communities that if they're not engaged, if they're not involved, there's just no conservation happening. That all changed a little bit, and my career path took a very interesting turn of events last year in 2020, with all of the recognition that I received that Brianna already spoke about, that I was nominated the youngest minister in our government of the largest ministry in our government, which is the Ministry of Culture, Tourism, and Environment. Mind you, these are exactly the three sectors that my thesis is based on and that my research wants to focus on, which is involving communities, which is the cultural views and aspirations of communities, into the conservation of environment, which is obviously environment, and then adding on some sustainable alternatives, livelihood alternatives that will enable them not just to improve their livelihoods, but make them the guardians of their own land, which was taken away from them during the Civil War. So it was reconnecting them with their knowledge, reconnecting them with the ability they have to communicate in between generations, and give them the tools and give them the possibilities of being proud of their land, of overcoming poverty and the livelihoods that they are trying to improve, and giving them the tools through conservation and through activities like tourism. So being the Ministry of Culture, Tourism, of Environment has helped me to kind of see the whole picture and be able to engage in all of these little different aspects that sometimes we don't even consider, like the mythical beliefs that they have applied into conservation that will provide a tourism background. So currently I am trying my best to finalize this research and be able to make it very applicable to the reality of these communities and thus to the reality of the country, to help save all of these incredible wilderness and biodiversity areas that we can see throughout the research and the content that Adjany produces. I think I've spoken already 20 minutes, and I'm going to stop here.
That was really exciting to learn about your career path and how it's taken different routes based on really what you've learned and how we've applied that. So that's really great to learn. And I have so many questions. I don't even know where to begin. I think congratulations is in order as well. And we are so excited that you're going to be part of the government and really working on these issues on a policy level, which will really impact the future of the land in Angola and the surrounding areas. So congratulations. And what I want to know is, right now, everywhere in the world is impacted by COVID. How is it impacting Angola? How is it impacting the conservation efforts there?
It has greatly impacted even before it actually reached Angola. I think everyone was so anxious when COVID started moving around the world and then left Africa for last. And then everyone was very anxious on how is it going to be here. There was so little research. Most of the research was on temperate climate, was on different continents that don't really have the same ecological dynamics and climate here. And so everyone was very anxious. So it actually affected us much more before it hit us, because we were trying to get ready for it than afterwards. When it hit us, we were conscious that things were going to change. We could see all of the news around the world, and we knew that things are going to change. So we were a little bit more psychologically ready for it. Though obviously, just like everywhere in the world, most of the projects have stopped. Mobility around the country was forbid, obviously, as one of the safety procedures. And so a lot of the conservation work was done remotely as well. So it was pretty much just getting in touch with everything that was behind in terms of reporting, in terms of getting funding, but there was no field work itself. Some of the projects did not do so well, obviously, but some others just took that opportunity and took the whole rush into social media and the whole rush and attention into the online world to take it a step further and reach out to a much bigger audience and be able to take people to these conservation places online. And so even though we did not go to the field, and even though we did not do all of the goals that we had established for past year and also this year now, we were able to reach out much further than before through getting that online dynamic adjusted.
Well, I would love to get online and go to Angola. That sounds like it would be lots of fun to hang out with those elephants. And I know in the film you talk a lot about being from the city and then going into more rural communities. Can you speak a little bit about how COVID is impacting both the rural communities, and has it reached these rural communities in Angola?
COVID itself hasn't reached much further than the capital. And that is thankfully, again, because we started getting ready before it got here. We took it very seriously. Our health system is already quite precarious. So we knew that we had to protect what we could before it got to us. And that is what happened. The capital was completely shut, which most of us are used to because we spend most of our lives in that. So the capital was completely shut. There were very straight measures put in place by the government. Using masks was compulsory from day one. There were walking restrictions. There was just restrictions for pretty much everything. And so we managed to kind of avoid it to get to the point where certain countries in the world are at. So that was mostly affecting the major populated cities and not the rural areas. The major effect to the rural areas was obviously impact it had on our economy. Obviously, everything that happens economy-wise in the cities are going to affect the rural communities because that's where they get their medicine, that's where they get things like salt and soap. In most rural communities, the teachers and the nurses are from the cities and they had to go back to their cities, so they were months on end without a teacher and a nurse. And so it indirectly affected them, but I think even greater than the health part of COVID. Until today, they're trying to get over that, but it's still very difficult because accessibility is still very restricted.
Yeah, wow. Well, I hope things shape up soon, and I hope you're staying safe out there. Yeah. So I have another question. You speak, and it's pretty obvious in the film that you're the only woman on this epic expedition into unknown, uncharted territory. And what was it like for all the young girls out there? What was it like being the only woman in a situation where, you're the only woman, and I think you're one of the only young people there as well.
Yeah, I was the youngest, and not just by age, but also just wildlife experience as well. I think the biggest lesson that I've taken from that, from being the only woman, is that before I'm a woman, I am a person. And so I have to deal with everything that a woman has to deal, hormones and emotions and all of that. But before then, I am a person. And thankfully enough, though it took a few weeks for the team to also, because they were kind of just being very nice and don't do that, don't carry that, or you can't carry a canoe, or obviously they were trying to be gentlemen. But there's a very fine line in between being a gentleman and being patronized. And that's what I tried to show them, that, I was physically weaker than them. Obviously, that was obvious, but I could do things and to a certain limit. And by the time that I couldn't, I would ask for help. Like any person in the world, no matter what your gender is, you will do things at a certain level and then you will ask for help. That's how it is. And so after the third and fourth month, everyone was kind of used to. I wasn't the girl in the camp. I was just another team member, and that changed the whole perspective of everything. Obviously, we do have to deal with a lot of things, and that was actually the first time that I realized that being a woman is rather difficult. I've always been a tomboy, and I've always, dealt with boys, but then I was by myself. For the first time, I had no option of dealing with boys or girls. We're just testosterone 24 hours a day. And so I started getting to know myself and started to being able to handle my own issues as a woman. And that made me so much stronger and able to kind of carry through every other obstacle that we have to as a woman, as women. Yeah.
Wow, it's really incredible. And how do you think that experience is going to shape your upcoming future in policy, in government? How are you going to take any of the lessons that you learned?
I think the two major things here, and one of them is making both research and policies applicable. That's one of the things that I've learned from that expedition and the expeditions after that, and working with communities, is that no matter how much research you do, how many species you find, if it is not found to be able to be applied to improve things in the field and things in conservation, it is almost pointless. If you can't use that to give back to the people in local area, it's just going to be for everywhere in the world except for the people that are there. And so that's the message that I brought with myself, the mindset that I brought with myself to the ministry, is that policies, no matter what they're for, they have to be applicable, or else it's just a waste of time. We're not kind of using our time very effectively here. And that makes things a little bit harder, because it's not just the politics itself, it's getting to the end of the day and realizing, okay, that thing that was not working actually might be able to work. And by working, you are helping those that are in the field, you are helping the researchers, you are helping the local community and the economy, obviously, because of tourism, into being able to prosper. And so I think applicability here is a major keyword here. And obviously having the field experience helps me kind of to be able to shape these policies into the reality and not just, talk them out loud without realizing what's in the field.
Right, and you've definitely seen what's in the field from the film. And I think it really speaks to why this is so important, to talk about these issues and to share these issues and to share your experiences with others, so that it's not just siloed into the political world or the academic world, but really everyone's working together to protect our land. Yeah. And my final question for you, so a lot of kids out there, they've heard of Kenya, they've heard of South Africa. We don't always hear about Angola. We don't always hear about traveling to Angola. So what is the future of Angola that you see? And what is it going to look like in the next 10, 15, 20, 40 years?
Angola, and that is the biggest dream that we have, might be one of the centers of tourism in Southern Africa. You have South Africa, you have Botswana, Zambia, pretty much all countries in Southern Africa are pretty popular for tourists, for worldwide tourism. But Angola, because of the civil war and because of the mines after the civil war, was kept outside the tourism map. But now it's a novelty. And now we can use our history, and we can use our people, and we can use our aspirations, and we can use even our development prospects to attract all of these tourism possibilities to the country and make it a good novelty. There starts already to be some very baby steps into that front. People kind of recognizing the ecological importance of Angola, people recognizing how incredible and awesome our people is. I mean, we're just awesome. And people recognizing that is a destination not to be afraid of and not to fear, and that we are all actually welcoming everyone. And so, as you said, it takes years. It takes 10, 15, 20, 25 years, but we are most definitely going to, or are working very hard to become one of the leading destinations in Southern Africa.
Oh, well, it sounds beautiful, and I really hope that I can get there one day. And thank you so much for joining us. We're running out of time here, but thank you so much for joining us in the Women Blaze Trails Festival, Adjany, all the way from Angola, and for sharing your story. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. And next time I'll have better images and not just my boring face.
Well, there's tons of images online. You can look them up into the Okavango. National Geographic is hosting a lot of stuff on their Instagram and on their website. And check out the film if you haven't seen it before, and keep watching Adjany in the field. It's very fun. I'd recommend it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. See you soon.
Yeah, take care.